Hey, it's Brad back here in the Banger Hanger for the Black Friday edition of Overkill Reviews. Speaking of Black Friday, I got a black light to show off my new black shirt from Sanguisugabog. Pretty fucking sick. Check it out. The logo's all up and down the sleeves. It lights up. This shit lights up. It says Pornographic Seizures, the name of their EP down the sleeve, also lights up. Speaking of Black Friday, I know consumerism is bad, especially when you're like supporting corporations. But if you want to support the little guy, us here at BangerTV, join us on our Patreon. For the next like 48 hours or so, we have a tier up where you get a limited edition long sleeve designed by Mark Riddick. It's fucking sick. So yeah, Sanguisugabog, they got the beef thing. This band, they're notable for starting out as a vegetarian band. Yep, it's Cattle Decapitation and their new album, Death Atlas, out now on Metal Blade Records. I don't know how many, if any of them, are still vegetarian, but I do know their general history, so bio time. Cattle Decapitation formed in 1996 as a relatively straightforward death grind band. Again, most notable for their vegetarian stance, which has them naming albums like Human Jerky and Humanure. That last album, the cover features a cow, but it's shitting out a human. So the cover got banned in some retailers and stuff, controversy. Woo. Over time, their lyrics have kind of morphed from pro-animal to anti-human, while their music has increased the technical and progressive death metal elements. My exclaim review of their last album, 2015's The Anthropocene Extinction, was quoted on their official press whatever shit saying, "The Anthropocene Extinction is another stroke of genius by one of the best heavy bands of all time." So I just quoted Cattle Decapitation quoting me. Inception. So it's time to find out if album number 8 finds the band increasing their IQ or not. And I know IQ isn't a real measure of intelligence. Shut the fuck up. Vulture is the first standout track on the album. A simple opening is complemented by these toilet swirling guttural vocals, and then later Travis bypasses his, snarling goblin voice for a similarly snarled speaking. A fleet-footed, or I guess you would call it fleet-handed, riff finds the band sliding chords up and down the guitar neck. Later, just when you think they're about to get ready to burst into one of those full-on chorus kind of things they do with the goblin singing stuff, they're fuck you, and they go into a blast beat. Bait and switch. That makes it all the more surprising when they do go into his trademark vocal styles for a little bit in the bridge. It's a quick taste, not a multi-course meal. The band later has this slow chugging riff, which they ramp up the double bass on, giving it a real slammy feel. Speaking of slam, Finish Them feels like a song that one of those bands would write. It's the trademark kind of hardcore song. I referenced it in my Despised Icon review. It feels pretty primitive compared to the rest of the expansive soundscapes, but a mid-song thrashy section kind of gets as close as they get to grindcore on this one, and that kind of really saves the song from being a one-dimensional mosher. All right, before we go any further, anytime that I say singing from here on out, I'm referring to the weird goblin singing, unless I say otherwise. And I will say otherwise later, but for now, singing means goblin. Got it? Cool. Bring Back the Plague just might be my favorite song on the album. The singing in the, chorus-esque part feels particularly commanding. The song continues to morph with the second half being this super melodic thing where the singing, still goblin singing, it's just slightly more melodic. While the earlier vocals feel commanding, this feels like Travis really has command over his own voice. And when he says, "bring back the plague," with these rolling R's, "bring back the plague," it's just serpentine. Absolute Destitute starts out with a chord that's deconstructed into the individual notes and kind of chimes out. It feels similar to that, the rolling R's there, just in the, how it's bring, bring. I sound like a fucking phone, bro. What the hell? The song has a sparse bridge that really accentuates the ominous message. We're flying too close to the sun. We play with fire. We tempt our fate. Life alights the flame to burn our hate. That's the benefit to some of the dialed back songwriting that they do here. The first proper song, the Geocide, ends with like this exclamation, fuck the future, fuck the future, fuck the future, fuck all mankind. And you can't ignore it. It's so prominent. Despite that really direct message, the other highlights on this album come in the form of something more nuanced. The last two proper songs on the album, including Time's Cruel Curtain, which is 5.5 minutes, and it features some gelatinous, like, grimy bass, care of fellow Canadian Olivier Pinard, who's also in Cryptopsy, and this is his first album with the band. Anyway, that song, again, 5.5 minutes, kind of feels like the embryo from which the 9+ minute title track that closes out the album is born. In this song, Travis Ryan really proves that singing doesn't always need to snarl. He kinda laments in this like low timbre that's not that far off from what Anthony is doing on the latest Cult Leader album. The contrast between that and the singing, and I'm back on the Goblin thing when I'm talking about singing there, it really accentuates one another, and the Goblin stuff really feels like a very self-aware villain knowing that he's about to play his part in undoing this world. By the end of this song, and by extension, by the end of the album as a whole, I feel something close to sorrow, which is more emotion than death metal typically elicits, barring the emotion of excited, because really good death metal gets me really fucking excited. Making you feel sorrow kind of feels like it was the goal here. They start the album out with like this mood setting piece that has like this dystopian darkness over which people are talking. I don't think a lot of it is in English, if any, but it sounds proper end times like. After that, the band keep it slow for the Geocide. It's a lot of chugging, a lot of mid-paced stuff, a lot of the stuff that feels like typically they would use more as transition riffs than the building blocks for a whole song. In fact, they do that fairly often throughout the album, and I think that it's, you know, part of the overall like ebb and flow about, you know, trying to make a cohesive, larger than life album. And sometimes it works for that, but sometimes you wonder what could have been there, especially because this is their first album with two guitarists, and sometimes it feels like that's being underutilized. I'd say the other main problem in this album is the overuse of those singing vocals. While I once thought they were one of the coolest innovations in modern death metal, they appear in most songs here, and it starts to feel a little bit like formulaic. Be Still Our Bleeding Hearts is an offender here. While it starts out with some killer death metal riffing and like this earthquake of drums, the chorus, and yes, it's a chorus here as in it happens multiple times and repeats, it feels kind of corny. One Day Closer to the End of the World starts out with these Gojira-esque pick scrapes, and that's appropriate given the eco-metal kind of lyrical vibe they got going on here. That being said, the chorus bit feels a little much. And the trem picking riff that follows it feels like you kind of took the vocal pattern from the chorus and transposed it and took a big inspiration from that. And it just kind of extends that bit a little bit. Like the guitar feels similar to his vocals. I don't hate it, but again, I wonder what could have appeared there. When they drop the music down for a slower transition, his vocal register drops down and he sings, not like a goblin this time, and it's very morose in a very good way. So all of these things do pretty much save this song. So despite the fact that the chorus is not my favorite, overall I like this song. I guess the last gripe here is a minor one. In trying to craft this like epic, this overarching piece that makes a statement on the fact that we're destroying the fucking planet, they include a few of these like interludes with, you know, speaking atop them, again, end time stuff, like the world's going to hell, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it feels like it disrupts the flow of the album. Then again, sometimes it feels like it doesn't. But overall, I don't think that the band particularly cares if you aren't a huge fan of those interludes. I feel like they've got loftier aims than your album of the year list. You know, that's proven by the fact that this comes out today, November 29th, when a lot of the best of the year lists are already done. No, it seems that this time around they're more concerned with going for like the Nobel peace prize through raising awareness of our impending doom. The album as a whole seems to borrow more from black metal than the band has in the past, with a lot of like these blast beats and high-pitched trem riffs, and just the overall bleakness. They've really crafted an ocean here with awareness of the tide. And sometimes it works, but sometimes it feels like the beach is just waiting there for the crash of the waves. I've struggled a lot with this album. When I first heard it, it didn't immediately grab me. There was something missing. There wasn't as many riffs. I just wasn't as immediately grabbed as I have been on previous albums by this band. At first, I didn't really like this album. I have grown to enjoy it quite a lot. It's not as immediate as their previous ones, again, because it's more of a journey than anything. So every piece of that journey is important, even, the courses that don't strike me as hard, the spoken word interludes. So all that being said, I'm gonna pull an Anthony Fantano here, and I'm gonna say that I'm giving this a high 3.5 out of 5. No, he would say a strong 3.5 out of 5. Strong. But it's not all doom and gloom around here. Nope, we've got more metal albums for you to check out. It's Shoutout time. First up, we've got the new one from old school death metalers, Sentient Horror. It's called Morbid Realms, and it's out on the Always Killer Redefining Darkness Records. Also out today is Red Death's Sickness Divine on Century Media. It's got Connor, who plays drums in Genocide Pact and Innumerable Forms and a bunch of other bands, and he pretty much doesn't put out bad music, so it's gonna be sick. All right, let me know down below in the comments what you think of this album, what you think of my review, what do you think about the fact that the planet's going to shit, and if you really want to contribute to that by joining in on Black Friday, we got some black shirts in our web store that you can consume.